as I said, it's not one thing, it was many things. But I did not like that he'd had meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, no.
Imagine having it all: a $130 billion fortune, a 66,000 square foot mansion, 3 children, and a husband the world called a genius. Yet behind closed doors, Melinda Gates was falling apart, crying on the floor, battling panic attacks, and waking from nightmares of her home collapsing. After 27 years of silence, she's finally telling the world the shocking truths that tore her marriage apart. A marriage on the edge. In late October 2019, Melinda Gates sat alone in her home office, scrolling through a New York Times article that made her heart drop. The piece revealed her husband, Bill Gates, had multiple meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted offender she had warned him about years earlier. Melinda had met Epstein once in 2013 and was deeply disturbed, telling Bill she never wanted any contact with him again. Yet Bill ignored her warnings, meeting Epstein repeatedly, with reports showing at least 6 documented encounters between 2011 and 2014, and possibly many more. The revelation hit Melinda like a storm. She realized that the life she had carefully built over nearly 3 decades might be unraveling. Within days, she called multiple divorce lawyers, determined to understand her options. It wasn't just about Epstein. There was another secret hidden for almost 20 years that was about to surface. Every call, every document she read made her feel both betrayed and determined. The woman who had spent her life advocating for others now had to fiercely protect herself. The New York Times article marked a turning point. It forced Melinda to confront not only her husband's questionable decisions, but also the growing chasm in their marriage. Nightmares of her house collapsing and panic attacks that left her breathless became a constant companion. The woman who had managed billions in charitable work and spoken to world leaders was suddenly powerless over her own life. In the days that followed, Melinda began preparing for the inevitable, protecting herself and her children while bracing for a storm that would change everything. And just when she thought she had uncovered it all, a shocking letter arrived that would reveal a betrayal she never expected. A secret affair that had been buried for nearly 2 decades, one that could shatter everything she believed about her marriage and the man she had trusted most. The Microsoft secret that shattered trust. In late 2019, a startling letter arrived at Microsoft's headquarters, one that would change everything for Melinda Gates. Written by a former employee, the letter claimed she had an affair with Bill Gates while he was still running the company. Her hope was simple but bold. Melinda needed to know the truth. According to multiple reports, the relationship began around the year 2000, when Bill's marriage was still young and his children were toddlers. For nearly 2 decades, the secret remained buried, shielded by silence on both sides. But by 2019, the woman could no longer stay quiet. The letter reached Microsoft's board of directors, who immediately recognized the seriousness of the allegations. This was not merely a private matter, it was a potential scandal that could tarnish the reputation of the company founded by one of the world's most prominent figures. The board quickly hired outside attorneys to investigate, interviewing witnesses, reviewing documents, and piecing together a timeline of events. They scrutinized emails, meetings, and any interactions that could reveal misconduct, understanding that their decisions could impact the company's future and public perception. The findings were significant enough that, in March 2020, Bill Gates resigned from Microsoft's board while the investigation was still ongoing. A spokesperson later confirmed the affair had occurred nearly 20 years ago and ended amicably, though many questioned how a marriage-bound relationship could ever be described that way. But this revelation was only the beginning. Further reporting by the New York Times revealed a troubling pattern of behavior. Over the years, Bill had sent inappropriate messages and invitations to female employees at Microsoft, prompting executives to step in and intervene. Emails, late-night requests, and suggestive comments painted a picture of repeated lapses in judgment and professional boundaries. Even within the Gates Foundation, colleagues reported moments of discomfort caused by his actions, showing that his behavior extended beyond a single affair and into the very institutions he had built. His actions raised questions not only about his integrity, but also about the culture of the organizations he led, prompting difficult conversations about power, influence, and accountability. For Melinda, the letter was more than a professional shock. It was deeply personal. She realized that for years, she had unknowingly shared her life with a man who had repeatedly broken the trust they had promised each other. The betrayal cut deep, shaking the foundation of her marriage and forcing her to confront painful truths she had long tried to ignore. During her first major television interview after the divorce, she spoke with remarkable clarity. When asked whether there had been other women, she paused, then said firmly, "These are questions Bill needed to answer himself." She made it unmistakably clear that after decades of silence, she would no longer protect his secrets. This was no longer about sparing his reputation. It was about claiming the truth for herself and her children, stepping out of the shadow of betrayal and confronting the reality of a marriage fractured by hidden transgressions, professional misconduct, and broken trust. Melinda's decision to face the facts and demand transparency marked a turning point, a choice to no longer compromise her integrity or her family's well-being. But while Melinda was grappling with this betrayal, another shadow from Bill's past was about to resurface, one that would shake their marriage even further. Bill Gates' secret meetings that shook his marriage. Even after Epstein's 2008 conviction for procuring a child for prostitution, his presence continued to haunt powerful figures, including Bill Gates. By 2011, 3 years after Epstein had served his sentence, Bill began meeting with him again. These encounters were not fleeting. They included long dinners, late-night conversations, and discussions about philanthropy and business. Despite knowing Epstein's dark past, Bill seemed drawn to him, and the meetings continued for several years. Melinda was deeply troubled. She had made her feelings crystal clear. She did not want Epstein in their lives. She found his presence disturbing, even dangerous, and repeatedly told Bill to stop meeting with him. "I did not like that he had meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. No, I made that clear to him," she said in her CBS interview with Gayle King. But her warnings went unheeded. Bill continued the relationship, apparently placing his own judgment above her expressed concerns. The tension escalated in ways that would eventually reach the public eye. Text messages released years later revealed shocking insights into the depth of Bill's involvement. By 2017, an advisor had directly communicated with Epstein, stating that Bill wanted to speak to him, but his wife would not allow it. The advisor even wrote that Bill loves you and regretted abandoning their business proposals. The messages underscored just how far the situation had gone and how Melinda had become the one person standing between Epstein and Bill Gates. When Epstein died in 2019 under mysterious circumstances, Melinda thought the nightmare might finally be over. But shortly after, a New York Times expose revealed the meetings to the public, forcing her to confront once again the betrayal and disregard for her feelings. By this point, the psychological toll had been immense. Melinda had suffered nightmares, panic attacks, and sleepless nights. She realized her marriage was under threat not just from a hidden affair, but from repeated patterns of disregard for her concerns and values. This chapter of deception, secrecy, and ignored warnings set the stage for a dramatic turning point in the Gates marriage, a point where Melinda had to decide whether she could continue to protect a relationship that had repeatedly endangered her trust and peace of mind. With the truth of Bill's actions finally surfacing, the question remained: how would Melinda cope with the emotional fallout? Melinda Gates' darkest days. Between late 2019 and early 2021, Melinda Gates faced the most harrowing period of her life. At 55, after 25 years of marriage, she found herself confronting a series of betrayals that shook the foundation of her family. Despite a life of achievement, speaking to world leaders, managing billions in charitable work, and raising 3 children, she experienced emotions she had never felt before. Panic attacks gripped her unexpectedly, her heart raced uncontrollably, and sleepless nights became routine as recurring nightmares tormented her. These were not ordinary fears. In her dreams, her home crumbled, cliffs gave way beneath her, and her family was in peril. She awoke screaming, terrified to close her eyes again. Nights blurred into days of sheer exhaustion, leaving her physically and emotionally drained. "I had a lot of tears for many days," Melinda told CBS anchor Gayle King. "Days where I'm literally lying on the floor, wondering how I can get up, how I can move forward." The woman who had navigated global initiatives and high-stakes philanthropy now struggled to simply breathe. By February 2020, during a trip to New Mexico, Melinda reached a pivotal decision. She could no longer remain in a marriage riddled with secrecy and broken trust. Summoning the courage to confront Bill, she expressed her need to live separately and begin the process of divorce. Bill's reaction was surprisingly composed. He was sad and upset, yet respectful, perhaps acknowledging the inevitability his choices had created. The months that followed required careful planning and negotiation. Every detail of unwinding a 27-year marriage, assets, finances, children, and public image had to be meticulously addressed. Melinda worked to ensure her children's well-being while protecting herself from further emotional harm. She contacted multiple attorneys to understand her options and prepare for the complex legal and financial realities ahead. On May 3rd, 2021, the couple publicly announced their decision to divorce via a joint statement on Twitter, signaling the end of their marriage in the public eye. 3 months later, a judge in King County, Washington, legally finalized the separation, closing a chapter that had defined nearly 3 decades of her life. Yet, even as the world saw the announcement, Melinda's personal journey was just beginning. The emotional toll of betrayal, secrecy, and disregarded boundaries had forced her to confront profound truths about herself, her marriage, and the life she wanted to lead. It was a period marked by vulnerability, reflection, and ultimately, the first steps toward reclaiming her autonomy and her voice. Dividing Bill and Melinda Gates' empire. When Bill and Melinda Gates divorced, the scale of their wealth made headlines worldwide. Together, they were worth around $130 billion, making their split one of the most complex in history. Dividing assets of this magnitude was no simple task. On the very day of the public announcement, Bill transferred $2.4 billion in securities to Melinda, including major stakes in companies such as Canadian National Railway and Coca-Cola FEMSA. This immediate transfer marked just the beginning of a careful, deliberate division of their fortune. Real estate added another layer of complexity. Their iconic 66,000 square foot Seattle mansion, Xanadu 2.0, which cost over $60 million and took 7 years to build, was just one of multiple properties across the US and abroad. Each home required appraisal, negotiation, and careful allocation between the two. Beyond personal property, their shared legacy, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, added unprecedented stakes. With over $50 billion in assets, the foundation had been their life's work for 25 years, funding global vaccine programs, education initiatives, and poverty reduction projects. Initially, they attempted to maintain a professional partnership despite the divorce. Melinda agreed to stay on for a 2-year trial period as co-chair, attending meetings and jointly making decisions. But by June 2024, it became clear the arrangement was unsustainable. Melinda chose to step away entirely, prioritizing her independence and the freedom to pursue her own vision. Her departure was marked by a symbolic and significant decision. The foundation was renamed, removing her name from its title and signaling a clean break from the partnership she had once shared. Financially, Melinda walked away with an enormous sum, $12.5 billion, to fund her independent philanthropic endeavors. But the true cost of leaving went far beyond money. It was about reclaiming identity, agency, and the power to act without compromise. After decades operating within Bill's shadow, she was finally free to champion causes she believed in, make strategic decisions without interference, and define her own legacy. When interviewed about leaving the foundation, Melinda described the experience with a sense of liberation. "I am totally unencumbered to work in any way I want," she said, no longer constrained by expectations, protocols, or the need to protect her ex-husband's reputation. She could now fully dedicate herself to the causes she found most meaningful. This chapter marked not just a financial and professional shift, but a deeply personal transformation. Melinda was no longer the wife managing shared assets or safeguarding the image of her marriage. She had become an autonomous force, free to design the next phase of her life on her own terms. The stage was set for her to emerge as a leader and philanthropist in her own right, embracing freedom, purpose, and the power of choice. the woman Melinda Gates became. By the time Melinda Gates stepped onto the stage of The Late Show in April 2025, she was a strikingly different woman than the one who had once lain on her bedroom floor, overcome with despair. The weight of betrayal, secrecy, and years of compromise had shaped her, but it had not defeated her. Her posture was poised, her voice confident, and her eyes held a clarity earned through survival and resilience. She had emerged from the shadows of her former marriage and the enormous legacy she had helped build, ready to define her life on her own terms. Holding a copy of her memoir, the next day, Melinda faced the public and shared her journey from devastation to renewal. The book quickly became a bestseller, resonating with readers across the country, particularly women who had experienced betrayal, loss, or the challenge of reclaiming their identity. During her appearance, Stephen Colbert asked the question on everyone's mind: what had Bill's affair taught her about love, trust, and marriage? Her answer was direct, honest, and reflective of hard-earned wisdom. "I learned to have a trusted relationship, which is what I wanted in marriage," she said. "Both partners have to be honest with one another, and if you cannot have intimacy and you cannot have trust. And so in the end, I had to go." The final words, "I had to go," resonated far beyond the studio. They conveyed not a choice made lightly, but a necessity for survival, authenticity, and self-respect. Therapy and self-reflection had played a critical role in her transformation. In her memoir, she described the painstaking work of understanding why she had tolerated betrayal, why she had remained silent at times, and how she could respond without compromising her own values. She recognized how she had shrunk to accommodate her husband's reputation, decisions, and desires, gradually losing touch with the woman she had been and the woman she wanted to be. "I just became less of myself, and I did not like myself," she wrote. "And I wanted to be more myself and truly lean into the work that I was seeing and knew needed to be happening in the world." With her departure from the Gates Foundation, Melinda gained not only financial freedom, but also the autonomy to direct her philanthropic efforts through pivotal ventures. She committed over $1 billion to initiatives focused on women and girls, including historically underfunded areas of global health. Her choices were guided by conviction rather than compromise, and she used her platform to champion causes she believed in, even when they might have conflicted with her ex-husband's priorities or the legacy of their shared foundation. Alongside her professional resurgence, Melinda also embraced personal happiness. In October 2024, she went public with her new relationship, revealing her partner, Philip Vaughan, a 48-year-old tech entrepreneur and founder of a craft beer delivery company called Tavour. The couple's red carpet debut came in October 2025 at the Clooney Foundation's Albies Awards in London, where they were photographed together, smiling and seemingly genuinely happy. In interviews, Melinda expressed contentment with a straightforward, heartfelt honesty. "It has been pretty great," she told Colbert, repeating the phrase for emphasis. To People magazine, she said even more plainly, "I am very, very happy." At 61, she reflected on her new chapter with gratitude and perspective. While acknowledging the natural aches that come with age, she emphasized her vitality, energy, and continued desire to learn, grow, and explore. Her inner circle now included women who had experienced their own reinventions and public scrutiny: Oprah Winfrey, Michelle Obama, Reese Witherspoon, providing inspiration, shared understanding, and support. These relationships further underscored Melinda's dedication to surrounding herself with people who elevate and challenge her. Her message about navigating life changes has always been grounded in authenticity rather than prescriptive advice. She does not claim to have all the answers, but she communicates a central truth: forging a new path requires courage. "When you change paths, you realize, oh, it is a big opening," she said. That big opening perfectly encapsulates the freedom and possibilities she has embraced since leaving her marriage. Melinda's journey illustrates the power of reclaiming identity and autonomy. From Mrs. Bill Gates, she transformed into Melinda French Gates, a woman no longer defined by marriage, public expectations, or shared legacy, but by her own choices and vision. She moved from lying on the floor, questioning how to move forward, to stepping onto helicopters with her partner, attending high-profile events, running a billion-dollar philanthropic enterprise, and speaking her truth publicly. Her story is a testament to resilience, courage, and self-determination. She proves that it is never too late to prioritize oneself, demand honesty and respect from relationships, and walk away from situations that compromise your values. Every step, from heartbreak to independence, from secrecy to openness, underscores the extraordinary woman she has become. At 61, Melinda Gates stands as a living example of renewal. She has reclaimed her identity, her voice, and her power. She has chosen herself, one decision, one truth, one brave step at a time. And now, the world can witness the full measure of the woman she has always been destined to become. After hearing Melinda's story, what's your take? Share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories like this.